First video of 2015, and what better way to start off the year than by making a video talking about what could possibly have been the most successful game of 2014. Before you guys crucify me at the stake, please hear me out on my reasoning behind making Destiny the most successful game of last year. I have several facts and information behind it, defending the fact that Destiny could have been the most successful game of last year. But before I get into that, I would like to explain what I mean by successful, because a lot of you guys could misconstrue what I'm saying and think that I'm intending that Destiny is the best game of 2014, and that is not what I'm saying by any means. For something to be the best game of a year, that is extremely biased and extremely opinionated. It would have to be just flat out my opinion for it to be the best game, and any game could technically be the best game of the year to any specific person, depending on their opinions towards the game and their perception of every other game that came out that year as opposed to it. So I'm not going to go as far as to say that Destiny was the best game of last year. It was definitely a really enjoyable game in my opinion, but I don't really know if I'd say it was the best game of 2014, because there are a lot of games that I would really like to try out and I could think would be better than that. But as for success, I don't really have to play the other games to understand why Destiny was more successful than others. Whenever I say successful, I am looking more specifically at the numbers that came along with the game, such as how many people are playing it, how many copies have been sold, things such as that. And I'm also taking into account whether or not the game is a new IP, meaning it was the first game in a series, it's the new title that has never been done before, and looking at how many copies it sold opposed to other games such as Call of Duty, which we would naturally expect to get a lot of sales just because it's a successful franchise and every year it does have a decent large amount of sales. And also Grand Theft Auto 5 being released on the next gen consoles is another thing, because that game previously had so much success on last gen consoles, and when coming to the next-gen consoles, just had that much more potential, which is why it had such high sales too. But keeping that in mind, I feel like Destiny is more successful just because it is a brand new game, new IP. Of course, there was a lot of hype behind it, which definitely helped it, and it was being developed by a well-known developer who made Halo originally. But taking these things into account, Destiny is still a new game, and if people didn't want to try out something that could potentially be something just god-awful because they have no background information on it, then Destiny really could have been a massive flop. And a lot of people actually think Destiny still was a massive flop, especially a lot of PC gamers that I've spoken to, and I understand that. If you're playing on PC and you have not gotten the ability to play Destiny because it is a console exclusive, I would highly recommend either trying out a friend's console and playing Destiny, or maybe investing a little bit of money into your own console, whether it's an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4, and trying out Destiny, because I feel like it is that game that kind of defines the console and gives you a real reason to play it. At least it was the first game that did that. There have been games since that have definitely helped out the console, but I feel like that was the first game that actually gave the next-gen console some life and actually helped them improve on sales. Now, having that in mind, I would like you PC gamers who have been ratting on Destiny ever since it came out because you're kind of scorned that they didn't release it on PC, just take a step back and hear me out. Destiny is actually a really fun game and very unique. It took a lot of elements from other games and actually made it work. So hear me out on my reasoning behind it being more successful than other games this year. Now, to start off, there is no secret that 2014 was a very poor year in gaming. There were so many games that came out that were just flat out broken from the get-go and were really big disappointments for a lot of people. Now, there were some good games here and there in the mix. However, the success that came with those good games was surpassed by the success that came from broken games, which usually shouldn't work out that way, but a lot of the times it did. Some of the good games that did come out, what I would have to say, was Dragon Age Inquisition. I've seen so many videos on it, so much gameplay on it. It looks like a blast. I actually plan on eventually getting it for my Xbox One or my PC, depending on how I'm feeling, and just trying it out because it looks like a really fun game. However, this game just didn't have massive success. Now, Dragon Age was a series that had previously been established and had previous games in the series, and you would expect this game to have a little bit more success and higher sale numbers, but it just didn't. And that's one reason why I don't feel like it's as successful as Destiny. Looking at Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, Call of Duty has been on a downward slope since Modern Warfare 3, and looking at Advanced Warfare, knowing that it is a better Call of Duty than previous games before, it still isn't as successful as some of the more successful Call of Duty titles have been. And then there's Assassin's Creed Unity, which is infamous for being so broken off the get-go that everybody was just scared of Ubisoft. As well as Watch Dogs. These games have basically scorned Ubisoft this year, and hopefully they can dig themselves out of the hole that they've put themselves in. But these big title games being published by Ubisoft have really disappointed a lot of people, and therefore had a lot less success than Destiny. Now, taking all that into account, I would like to look at some numbers that Bungie gave us earlier this last month that kind of put a picture as to how Destiny is doing, as well as numbers. So, first off, they said that 13 million people, approximately 13 million people, have picked up a controller and tried out Destiny. That doesn't mean that 13 million copies have been sold, but I'm sure somewhere around that many has been sold. Somewhere between 8 and 10 million, I'd estimate, copies of Destiny have been sold and purchased, and that's a pretty good amount for a new IP, especially within the first 3 months. That's really impressive. And then there's also the fact that there was 23 million Guardians made, which is the characters that you create in the game. That's a lot of devotion to the game. For there to be almost twice as many Guardians, that means that everybody who has picked up a controller practically has made 2 characters, and that's pretty insane because that requires a lot of time and effort to do something like that, and to have those numbers is really impressive. Now, keep in mind, these numbers were pre-Christmas, so at Christmas a lot of people got consoles, and a lot of people probably got Destiny as well, and those numbers have probably skyrocketed. I'd say the number of people who have possibly picked up Destiny is now somewhere close to 20 million, which is pretty insane to think that before Christmas they already had such success, and then after Christmas they still are continuing to gain success and continuing to gain a fan base behind that. Bungie has really done a great job at making the game look good and giving it a good chance as a new IP, and it definitely has had a lot of success. Now, this game is going to have a massive lifespan. I don't know when Destiny 2 will come out, but there are massive expansions and DLCs coming out sprinkled throughout the next year and a half, and whenever Destiny 2 does come out, I feel like we'll have twice as much success as Destiny. For these reasons today, I wanted to tell you guys that's why I think Destiny is the most successful game of 2014. And you guys can agree to disagree, do whatever it is you please, but those are my reasons behind it, and I really stand behind the fact that Destiny might have been the most successful game of last year. It didn't have much competition, the entire year was pretty crappy when it came to games, but when it comes down to it, Destiny was definitely one of the most successful games of last year, if not the most successful. That has been all for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys did, be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I would love to hear your opinions in the comment section down below. But as always, this has been Lupus, and I will catch you guys in the next one.